Hi, I'm Dawn Eden Goldstein. I'm a canon lawyer. You're watching episode 5 of Lifting the Veil on Annulments. I work at a Catholic diocesan tribunal, and I'm doing this series to make the annulment process transparent for people whose marriages have irreparably broken down, who wish to obtain an annulment from the Catholic Church so that they can be free to marry again. And as we've been doing this series, we've been looking at grounds for nullity. So this is for when you're preparing your application to present for your annulment. This is to help you determine which acceptable canonical ground applies in your case. I've been using for my guide in this series lists of grounds that were prepared for by a couple of different Catholic dioceses, the Diocese of Madison and the Diocese of Cleveland. The grounds for nullity are the same throughout the Catholic Church, but some dioceses explain them better than others. So today we're going to continue looking at the main one we've been using, which is the grounds list of the Diocese of Madison, Wisconsin. We've gone through the psychological defects of consent, and now we're looking at the section on other defects of consent. So the basis for these grounds that we're getting into, the basis is, as I've said before, that the Catholic Church expects that when people say I do, that they are internally believing and agreeing to what they're externally agreeing to. So if somebody is saying I do, but inside they're thinking I don't, that is or can be what's known as a form of simulation. You might know the expression when we say that someone's lying, that they're dissimulating. That is a similar use of the word. The understanding with the use of the word simulation in canon law is that somebody is just simulating going through the motions of saying something but not really believing it. So the areas in which simulation becomes a ground for nullity is if somebody is simulating against something that is essential to what marriage is on the understanding of the Catholic Church. So one of the things that's essential to the understanding of marriage in the Catholic Church, which I would call simply marriage, one of the things that's essential to it is openness to children. The Catholic Church doesn't teach that people are supposed to have as many children as they can physically have, but it does teach that parties who are getting married are not to close their marriage off to having children. And they're also not supposed to, from the very beginning, imagine limits on children. They're not supposed to agree beforehand saying, well, I'll marry you if we can only have 1 kid or 2 kids, or if we get married, we're going to stop at 3. No, it can happen once they're married that they can't afford to have more children, and then they can, with discernment, discuss ways to practice natural family planning to postpone children. That can also happen if there's a health issue, but normally, at least going into marriage, you're not supposed to set limits. Otherwise, it falls under simulation. So, Canon 1101 2, section 2, is the ground of partial simulation against the good of children. So this is the ground that that you would accuse your marriage of being null on this ground if, in fact, you or the other party either decided at the time of the vows that you weren't having children, or if you were firmly decided by that time of the vows that you weren't having children, or if you felt at the time of the vows that you were reserving to yourself the right to decide whether or not to have children. So, like in marriage, it takes two to tango, and a couple are supposed to be sharing their decisions with regard to childbearing. So if any party is reserving this decision to themselves, that also counts as partial simulation against the good of children. So next up, we have partial simulation against the good of fidelity. Again, what's one of the main qualities of marriage? Faithfulness. So as this grounds list from the Diocese of Madison, explains, if one party goes into the marriage wanting to keep a person with whom they're having an affair on the side, then they are, in making their vows, simulating against the good of fidelity. Another way that a party might simulate against the good of fidelity is if they go into marriage, perhaps not having anyone on the side at the moment, but if they go into marriage absolutely, determined that, the moment my spouse is no longer attractive to me, I will find someone else. Or if they are otherwise actively intending that at some point in the future they'll have an open marriage or some other means by which they're not going to be faithful, then that would be partial simulation against the good of fidelity. Then we have partial simulation against the good of indissolubility. This is one that people get confused about because they assume that, well, I knew that the divorce existed going into marriage, and I knew that I could divorce. So they'll say, therefore, I was simulating against the good of indissolubility. I know that Johnny Walker Black exists, but that doesn't mean I have to drink it. You can know that certain things are possibilities for you, and not have any desire to partake in them. So with regard to simulation against the good of indissolubility, it's not enough simply to know about divorce. The person going into marriage has to actively be planning that under certain conditions they will divorce. It's not just a vague thought like oh gosh, hopefully this will work out. But if something horrific happened where my spouse suddenly turned into an axe murderer, then sure I'd dump him. No, it's not that. The simulation is if somebody goes into marriage thinking very definitely that, as this example suggests, they imagine that I'm only in this until and unless my spouse cheats, and then or if they think I'm only in this marriage until and unless my spouse is no longer attractive to me, and then I'll just get out and marry someone younger or more attractive. That's simulation against the good of indissolubility. The Diocese of Madison here goes on to explain this type of simulation is not present in a situation where somebody goes into marriage wanting it to be for life, and then, years down the line, after problems, after much marriage counseling, then that person finally files for divorce. That doesn't count as simulation if the person went into marriage really intending for it to be permanent. Because as with these other grounds, they come down to the intention at the time of the marriage. So finally, for this episode, we'll look at total simulation. It's quite unlikely that your ground is going to be total simulation. Total simulation would mean that one or both of the parties really didn't intend marriage at all. One or both of the parties didn't intend to be faithful, didn't intend kids, didn't intend permanence, didn't intend to be in a real partnership. If one or both of the spouses just entered into marriage for another reason and for nothing having to do with actual marriage, that would be total simulation. So total simulation is like green card marriage, or marrying someone for their money and then not intending to live with that person, not intending to have that person's kids, not intending to have any type of partnership. That would be the ground of total simulation. So we're going to stop there. And next time we should be able to finish up with this section. So thank you for watching, and God bless you.